We're here today to mark the 140th anniversary of the coming of the Sisters of Mercy to Macroom. 140 years ago, this convent was founded here in Macroom town. A report written in this book of the Sisters of Mercy and of the laying of the foundation stone is of great interest. It reads as follows. A report on the laying of the foundation stone reveals that an immense crowd, in excess of 7,000, overflowed the spacious church for the celebration of Mass and then crammed every corner of the churchyard for the ceremony which commenced at 1 p.m. A procession formed comprising of cross-bearer, priests of the surrounding parishes, Canon Lee and Most Reverend Dr. Keane, Bishop of Cloyne and Ross, and proceeded to the spot where the stone, the foundation stone, was suspended from a pair of shears. After the prescribed prayers had been said, a bottle containing coins of the period, names of the officiating Bishop, Canon Lee, and the architect Mr. John Hurley from Cork, was sealed with the seal of the diocese and placed beneath the bed of the stone. The bishop then proceeded to lay the stone with a neatly carved wooden hammer and a silver trowel which he used to mark the site. The bishop then made the sign of the cross on each side of the stone. Finally, he struck it lightly with the hammer and declared amidst the totally silent crowd that the foundation stone was laid. This was on Monday, the 24th of August, 1857. I am told by the sisters that people from the town and the surrounding area brought stones from outside, drew them in here for the building of this convent, and gave an enormous amount of help in its building. Let's go inside now and meet the sisters. Dear Ansaistach, and welcome to the Mercy Convent Macroom, which this year is celebrating its 140th anniversary of coming here to Macroom. And today, the Sisters of Mercy have very kindly invited us along to the archive which has been assembled by them, but most particularly, I think, by Sister Peter. And it records from the very beginning, the foundation of the convent in Macroom. It records its development, its history, the people, the work of the sisters here in Macroom. Sister Peter is here with me, and she is looking at a written record of the first coming. Sister Peter, fill us in on how the sisters came to Macroom first.
The Sisters of Mercy owe the introduction of their order to the benevolence of Miss Mary N. McSweeney of Montenotte, Cork, whose father, Dr. Eugene McSweeney, had been a medical practitioner residing at North Square, Macroom. Miss McSweeney bequeathed 4 farms at Ahina and 2 houses in the North Square to Canon Lee, with instructions to establish a convent whose members would devote themselves to the poor of the town. Canon Lee chose for the site of the new foundation a plot of land above the new road, but wishing to have the convent adjoining the church, he changed his plans and erected the present building in the chapel yard. Before the work was finished, Canon Lee was called to his reward, and it was left to his successor to choose the order whose members would carry out Miss McSweeney's intentions. While administrator of Queenstown, Canon Cullinan had experience of the devoted work of the Sisters of Mercy among the children in the schools and sick poor in their homes, and he applied to Mother Baptist O'Neill, Cove, for sisters. At first a branch was contemplated, but owing to the distance and the absence of railway connections, it was decided to form an independent community. The foundation stone had been laid on the 24th day of August 1857, and now in November 1865 the convent was ready to receive its first members. Mother Evangelist was chosen as superior and accompanied by Reverend Henry Dennehy, the Reverend Mother from Queenstown, and some other nuns kindly lent. The little band of pioneers arrived on the vigil of the feast of the presentation of Our Blessed Lady, Macroom. Macroom gave a warm welcome to the nuns, and on their arrival a committee of ladies awaited them in the convent parlour, where a meal was prepared for them. It was a fast day of the order. The entertainers enjoyed their own bounty, while the poor sisters retired to the refectory to enjoy as best they could an impromptu meal of fasting fare.
Thank you very much, Sister. And that is a fairly extensive record, giving us a feel for those early days. Now, Sister Peter, you also have assembled in book form a record of all of the sisters who have resided here. This is not taking account, of course, of some who have come and gone on a very temporary basis. Will you maybe show us some of the pages of that? Now we are going to look at some photographs that were taken some time ago. Sister Peter will give us a guided tour through these, the reenactment of the founding of the convent here in Macroom. Sister Peter, talk to me about these pictures.
Well, the first picture is Mary Ann McSweeney, the Smithane, and this is Sister Gabriel Canon Lee, and she's pleading with him to have a convent built in Macroom that would serve the poor for generations. Canon Lee didn't see the need of it, I think, at that time, but eventually she prevailed, and he gave in. And this is the bishop now, Sister Eukarya Richardson, Canon Lee.
Dressed up as a bishop.
Dressed up as a bishop. And he's telling the people of Macroom that we're going to have a convent, you see. And now we have Canon Lee talking to the bishop, and after
who is dressed up as Canon Lee in that, sister?
Canon Lee is Sister Gabriel.
Sister Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is Bishop. What's his name?
This is the sister then who is talking.
That's
to
Sister
Eukarya.
Eukarya.
Yes. And the last photograph then, sister, at the end.
That was the year that they put a £5 on the stamp, you see, and we wanted to kind of highlight it. So Sister Aloysius is showing the £5 because that was...
Why was the £5 put on the stamp?
Because Mother Macaulay was on the stamp, our foundress.
Also, if Mother Macaulay's picture was on the old £5
on the old
note.
£5 note, yeah.
And this was highlighting her
yes,
being honoured
because that
in
was the
way.
year that the £5 note wasn't on the stamp.
That's very good. Now, this occasion was in Springford Hall near Mallow, I gather.
Yes.
And what was happening on that day?
I think we became a province, you know. We were just individual convents, and then we became a province.
I see. Very good.
Southern province.
All right. Now, sister, will you take us through your book, highlighting the different sisters, the record of the different sisters who were in the convent down through the years? Now, we're just going to take a sample here of them, and you might just speak to us.
This is Mother Macaulay.
Start again.
That's Catherine Macaulay. She's our foundress. This is our crest, and that's the stamp honouring Mother Macaulay on the £10 note. So she was the first Sister of Mercy. And then this is our foundress here in Macroom, Sister Evangelist Ramahani.
And she was the sister who founded...
She was the sister that came from
first.
Cove, the very first superior in Macroom Convent.
Yes.
And this is her brother. He's a bishop, Timothy O'Mahony. He was in Adelaide.
Very good. Now, maybe some of the modern sisters are the sisters that people will remember in the last 30 years.
Well, Sister Michael Crowe.
She was the Dickens. I remember her rapping on the partition.
She taught first class for a long time, so she would have taught all the boys, you know, for the First Holy Communion maybe.
Now, Sister Columba, I see, is coming up here. A lot of people will remember her for her art and her music.
That's right.
Sister Peter is showing us the early working wear, I suppose, that the sisters had and how that changed down through the years. This is the very first costume that the sisters would have worn. Beautifully made here and very interestingly so. Sister, if you tell us a little bit about the costume itself, maybe.
This is the original costume worn by Mother Macaulay herself and worn down for a long time. And this lady here was made by a little girl from an industrial school in Cork who had no legs. And she made all of these dolls. And this is the first one. And this is the train. We had a train that we always used when we were at religious ceremonies, like Mass and that. We always used the train. This is the big beads, and we had a crucifix hanging in here. Yeah. That was the first habit that was worn by the Sisters of Mercy for years. And then we changed.
And you moved on to something that was a little bit less cumbersome, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. We had what we call the V. See? And we had no train. The train was gone. And then we became more modern, so we showed our curls or our hair. And then we could wear blue or navy or black. And then we had that little one. And then we became more mod, And now we can wear anything we like, any colour or anything. So that's the modern one.
And sister, when your memory now of wearing, when you went at first, did you wear something like this?
Exactly that.
Exactly like that?
Exactly that.
And did you find it very awkward to work in it? Was it very difficult to...
Well, I suppose we were used to it then, but I don't think we could put up with it now.
Yes. I can't imagine somebody in a classroom or going out to visit the poor with this big long trail behind them. How did that operate?
They wouldn't have used it how it should be at religious exercises in the house, for Mass and things. They didn't wear that walking out. They couldn't.
So normally
they hooked up
here
and you went out with it hooked up.
And you went out with it.
That's the way you walked out.
Yes, I'm sure you must have. Somebody must have been very busy in the laundry, keeping all of this stuff in pristine condition.
Yes, and even making habits. Sister Kenneth here was marvellous. She made all our habits, I would imagine.
Did she? Were you very self-sufficient in that sense?
Yeah, we were.
What kind of other work went on in the building?
Well, she used to make altar breads as well. We supply
yes.
the convents and other places with altar breads for the Mass,
Tell me about that. How was that done?
We have a machine which is downstairs now, and it was made, you got a kind of mixture of flour and water. And there was a machine, so a hot plate, and after a few minutes you opened it up and you had a sheet of breads, and then there was a machine for cutting, and you cut out all the small breads and then some large hosts, and we were self-sufficient in that respect as well.
So how many of those hosts could be manufactured, we'll say, in a day now? Would there be hundreds?
As many as you wanted to, yeah.
Yeah,
would be.
There would be hundreds, would there?
There would, I'd say. And as many would. She would need a lot of them for the church in Macroom, wouldn't we? And maybe we supplied them elsewhere, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was like a little industry, really. The whole convent was like a little industry in the sense that you had a laundry here.
We had, yes.
Yeah.
We made our own bread.
Did you have a bakery here?
No, we didn't.
No.
We did our own baking, but it wasn't a bakery.
Yes. How many sisters were in the convent here when you entered?
About 29 to 30.
29 to 30.
And now 10.
You have 10 today.
Yeah.
Yes. But of course you do have a second convent now as well.
Yes.
And maybe we'll deal with that another day.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Because that's doing very important work
It
now.
is, yes. Homework and that.
Homework, yeah. So we'll come to that again in another interview.
Yeah.
Right, sister. I think you have a photograph somewhere of the hosts. Maybe we could just look at that for a second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Big large sleeves.
Okay. There is a detail here, sister, that I'm very curious about, and that's these very large sleeves.
Yes.
Tell me about those.
Well, we kept our hands in our sleeves and we were being very, very holy. And you could have anything up your sleeve, really.
I suppose this is where the expression came from, is it? Having it something up our sleeve. So tell us, what did you hide up your sleeves in various times?
You could take a sweet or two up to some of your good boys in school. Or maybe an apple or something.
There was nobody smuggling cigarettes or
no,
a
not
drop of whiskey or anything
not,
like that?
Not then.
You were all very good and well behaved in that respect. So that's excellent. Thanks, sister. Okay. Sister Peter, talk to me about the beads here.
Yeah, that's the beads we wore with the original habit, the big beads that we had, and it's 5 full decades. So you could be saying your little Hail Marys or anything, and it made a lot of noise when you were they were always heard coming. Yeah.
On top of this cupboard here, sister, there are some interesting charts.
Yeah, they're the charts that were used for Mass before we went into the vernacular, And that was St. John's Gospel over there. The others. They're the consecration.
The consecration of the Mass. So these stood on the altar and the priest read from them.
That's right.
That's the idea.
That's right.
And they're all in Latin, of course.
They're all in Latin.
Yes.
When altar was, then they answered Mass in Latin.
Yes. And up over those is a nice piece of work.
Yeah, tapestry made by some of the older nuns.
Yes.
So
that's a handmade tapestry, is it?
It is, yes.
Yeah, and what's the centrepiece?
I'd say that's the plique that they just put on, but the other is tapestry.
I see, yeah. So this is the kind of life, I suppose, when people weren't at school and teaching and when they weren't...
Well, I suppose there were times in the evening when you could be doing a little bit of work, if free time, like.
Yes.
They would all have been teaching in school, I'd imagine, as well, or doing visitation or whatever.
Yes, and they were doing some of this craft work according to their skills then.
Yes, and maybe during holidays, and yes. They would.
And there's another very similar one on the opposite wall, I think, that we...
At the same time, obviously.
Might.
And they used to be used for the Corpus Christi procession in the long ago, when we had the altar on the terrace. For the...
Outdoors. Here in the convent garden.
Out in the front garden.
On the front garden, yes.
So I just put them up there to show what the nuns were able to do.
Very good.
And this is handwork too, the lace, Well,
that's handwork, is it?
Yeah, that's a chart that Mother Malachi got for having lace, for doing lace.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But this is actually hand painted.
In 1907, she was presented with that cert for lace work.
Very good. Now you have the existing sisters in a photograph here. Are most of them in it?
We're only 10 now, you see, so some of them are gone to other convents or have died, have gone to heaven. Like Sister Eloise has gone to heaven, she's gone to another convent.
That Sister...
Sister Eloise and Sister Gabriel are gone to heaven.
Yes.
And 10 of us are here.
Yes. Visiting this fabulous archive here this morning with us is Mary Crowley Healy. Mary is a teacher in the secondary school here and also doing some research and study at the moment of the Mercy Order in Macroom in preparation for her master's degree. Mary, you probably have come across a lot of interesting and probably not so well-known information about the Sisters of Mercy in Macroom. For instance, you mentioned to me a minute ago that they were involved in the hospital in Macroom.
Mm-hmm, that's true. I suppose most people's memories of the sisters is in regard to education, but they, from their earliest times really, were very much involved with the poor of the town, and they worked very much in what we call Macroom Hospital, but which at the time was called the workhouse. I have here the annals, page 49. It says that in 1892 they took up their duties in the convent, and from then until the time that the hospital was burnt down in 1922, various sisters they were matrons in the hospital really, and nurses as well. There's a lovely story here in the annals about the day that the hospital burnt down. It's a very sad story, really. It happened the week of the Feast of Corpus Christi in 1922, and it effectively ended the association which the sisters had with the hospital, because my understanding is that it took a long time for the hospital to be rebuilt, and when it was rebuilt then the sisters were no longer associated with it.
I see. But and apart from the hospital then, and no doubt the work that they did there, it went on for quite a number of years, obviously.
Absolutely.
If it went on until the hospital burned down. But when they arrived in Macroom first, what kind of educational provision was available at the town at that stage?
Well, there was a primary school in the churchyard which was run by a Miss Tiptot, who still had 2 years of her contract left to run. So the sisters, I think, wisely decided at the time that they wouldn't intervene, and they allowed that situation to continue. So at that time, in the 1860s, secondary education, which was then known as intermediate education, was becoming provided really throughout the country by many religious orders. The Sisters of Mercy opened an intermediate school in Macroom, and their first classrooms were actually in the convent itself, in the convent parlour. So after a number of years then, because there was a growing demand for intermediate education, Mother Evangelist decided to build a separate school, which is the present day St. Mary's Secondary School.
Yeah.
That would be intermediate education. Then the primary school, the sisters obviously have been for a long time associated with primary education in the town. They had built a beautiful primary school in the convent grounds following the retirement of Miss Tiptot. And in 1974, a new primary school was built in what's known as Mount St. Joseph, what all of us would know as up the hill. Yes. There's a new primary school there now, which has been there since 1974.
Yeah, so they're continuing to give this tremendous service to the people of Macroom.
Absolutely.
It must have been interesting to have seen what Macroom was like before they came. I'm reminded of some places in Africa that I've seen where there was no teaching, and then where a religious order came into a community and started up the teaching, and the transformation was absolutely amazing. So I imagine that towards the end of the last century, the change that was coming about in Ireland at that time must have been absolutely...
I think really, in present day times, the Celtic Tiger economy and all that, I think it's very, very difficult for people to understand the impact that the sisters had really in a community. In recent years there, the state obviously has taken up its duty in providing education for the young people. But, in times gone by, it was orders like the Sisters of Mercy who, provided healthcare and education, as well as the charitable works, obviously, for recognised poor families in the town. So I think really that the contribution which they have made is something which it's difficult for young people today really to understand really the impact that they would have had in a community, because the need was so great.
Yes, and I think that in many respects, because something is there and it's there day in, day out, year in, year out, there is a tendency for us maybe to take things for granted.
I agree with you, yeah.
I recently heard somebody say where religious order was running a particular hospital in the city, that it has taken 11 lay people to do what one sister was doing.
Yeah.
Because of course they devoted their lives to their work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gave that wonderful service to the people.
That's right. And I suppose it all stems really from their foundress, Catherine Macaulay, who herself was devoted to the poor. She was a remarkable woman. She was a wealthy woman in her own right, but had always had a huge interest in the poor of Dublin, and the dedication that she showed, and in dedicating her whole life really to improving conditions of the poor people. I think really it shows through in the Sisters of Mercy in Macroom and throughout the country really.
Very good. And it's wonderful, Mary, that you're doing this research on the Mercy Order now in Macroom, and we'll all look forward to seeing this Great work, completed
if it's
shortly.
produced, thanks
and
very much,
congratulations
Brendan.
on your decision to do it. I'm sure you'll
Thank
be
you.
very, very successful with it.
Thanks, Brendan.
I don't think an awful lot of people will know or remember that the lace making business of the convent was very important at one stage and occupied a lot of the time of the sisters here and of their students in teaching it. We have on the table in front of us some templates of the lace making which have survived. Sister Peter, where did these come from?
We weren't really aware that lace had been taught in our convent for a long time. And one day I came across these templates since 1906. We thought they were for embroidery, but actually they're lace. And the people in the industrial school were making vestments, and that pattern was actually used in making a vestment in our industrial school. And in that school also they made socks and habits, for dead people. They all came for their habits to our vocational school, which was really the first vocational school I'd say in the town, because we did a lot of the work, that they do in the vocational school downtown even now. And the proof of it then is our lovely lace
Vestments.
Vestments, yeah.
Yes, and we'll have a look at those in just a second, sister. Do you know, were there many teachers occupied in teaching lace, and how many pupils they might have had?
Well, I wouldn't be sure of that, but I know Sister Finton and Mother Malachy and Sister Ligori worked in that vocational school, and I suppose they would have lay teachers as well. I'm not sure of that.
A lot of the lace making presumably was about providing vestments for the altar and for the priests.
Yes, they were wearing lace vestments then, They
And
don't have them now.
And the altar cloths as well,
Of course, yes.
I take it.
Yeah.
But the lace is no longer worn now by the priests, or rarely, if
Not
ever.
rare, not one at all, no.
So maybe we can just go down to the end of the room and have a look at some of the surviving samples of the lace system.
Yes.
The foundress, Catherine Macaulay, of course, has been honoured nationally by the government in that it included her picture on one of the £5 notes of a few years ago. And on the reverse side of that £5 note is a picture of the classroom of students at work in the classroom, blackboard with Misha Raftery and Fila written on the blackboard, and at the end of the room is a map of Europe. She was also honoured in that she appeared in one of our stamps again a few years ago. Talking to me here now is Sister Mary Kearns, who has been a sister here in the convent for quite a number of years. Sister Mary, you weren't always known as Sister Mary.
No, I entered in Cove in 1949, I think.
And what was your name in religion?
And after when I was received, I got a name, Raphael.
Raphael. And you were known as Sister Raphael for many years.
I was.
And that change in that, becoming known afterwards as Sister Mary, when did that happen, or how did it come about?
Well, that was a general thing that happened in the congregation, that we were allowed to keep our baptismal names.
Or you were also allowed
Or
to stay away?
Yeah, which a lot of people did. So I went back to,
You went back to your family name?
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about when you entered the convent first. Was that a huge decision for you, and how did it impact on your family?
It was a terrible decision for the family. They were broken-hearted. I was the eldest.
Yes. Would you say they were against it?
They were against it because they didn't know, and they said that I wasn't bound to do or to listen to what other people said. That.
Yes. And how did you feel the call at that time?
It's hard to know. I felt that I had to go,
that this was the life for you. Do you think it came from the influence of a teacher or of other nuns? That
probably
taught
the
you?
sisters that were teaching me.
The sisters in Cove at that
Yeah.
time. So you did your novitiate in Cove, is it?
I did my novitiate in Cove, yeah.
And did you stay on in Cove then as a sister in the convent there?
We had a novitiate, and I stayed on in Cove.
Yes, yes. Now, when you went to the convent, you were a very young person at
18.
that time, 18 years old. Was there great hardship for you in adjusting to convent life? Was it difficult?
I suppose it was strange, but not that difficult, because there were others. There was a group.
Can you remember how many?
There were about 5 of us. Went the same day, entered the same day. 24th of September was the day that, His Mercy Day, and that was the day that
you entered.
That I entered.
And can you, going back to that day now and facing into the convent, were you allowed to have contact with your family afterwards?
We were able to write. I think just once a month we were allowed to write.
Yes.
And they came,
Were they allowed to visit you?
They were allowed to visit.
Were they? Yeah. And the regime then during the daytime, you weren't teaching at that stage, of course.
I was sent up to the primary school teaching, and I got a first communion class of boys in Cove, and there was something like 70 something in the class, 73 or something like that in the class.
And you were 18.
I was 18, about 18. And I got these lads.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you kept teaching those, but you had to go and do a teaching qualification.
I
after that.
had, but I got those. I had those boys for 12 months.
Yes.
And I prepared them for their first communion.
Yes.
All young fellas.
Yes. So then you went to UCC,
I went to UCC, and I did arts. I did Irish and French.
Irish and French in UCC. Did you enjoy your time there?
I did.
What did you like about it?
Well, it was difficult enough, but I liked it. And I had a trip to France, of course. I had to go to France. And they didn't want to let me go to France, but we had to go to France.
As part of your study?
As part of the study.
Who didn't want you to go?
Oh, the community, the people in charge, I like.
Yes.
So they made inquiries and they found out that it was part of the,
Yes.
part of the work.
Yeah. So you beavered away then afterwards in your teaching life in Cove. And when did you come to Macroom?
I can't remember now.
It's quite a few years ago.
It is.
Probably the early 80s, was it? Round about then. You came as a career guidance counsellor, I think.
I did, I suppose. I did. I did the guidance course. That was a year's course. I did that in UCD.
Yes. And was that a choice of yours to come to Macroom?
No, I was asked to go to Macroom. I was told to go to Macroom.
Yes. And were you happy about that?
I was happy in Cove. I was happy.
Yes.
I didn't know where Macroom was or anything about it.
And did you find it difficult to make that change?
Well, once I had it made, I just went ahead with it.
Yes. And you fitted in. Of course, you would have known many of the sisters in Macroom.
I would have known some of them anyhow, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And did you find, was the regime in the convent in Macroom the same or different to Cove?
Much the same.
Yeah. Tell me what a day was like now at that time. You got up in the morning, I presume there was prayer, was there?
Around 6:30 or whatever, and we had prayer and we had mass.
Yeah, was that community prayer now?
That'd be community prayer. We had morning office and prayer, and we had mass then.
Yes.
And then we went. We had time for private prayer.
Yes.
And we had our breakfast. We went to school.
Now, was breakfast a social occasion, or was it undertaken in silence?
In silence.
In complete silence?
It was, yeah.
And were there any readings going on during that time?
No. There were readings during lunchtime, during dinner time, Our dinner was 4:00 in the evening.
Yes.
We had a snack or whatever around 12:30 or 1:00.
Yes.
At the same time as the children would be having their break.
Yes. And there were readings during that time. Was it in silence also?
It was not that. Well, it was the evening time, when it was 4:00.
Yes.
There
And
was
then-
silence, and there was a reading going on, and we took our turns during the reading.
Yes, and of course in the evenings you were busy then with
Corrections.
corrections for copybooks and so
Yeah.
on. These were astronomical, of course, weren't
There
they?
were
these
your big
corrections?
bundles of them.
I remember Sister Anne in Cove telling me one time as a French teacher here in Macroom that she had 72 Leaving Cert pupils, and it took her 1 hour per paper to correct essays. So that was 72 hours of correction. Every week, she told me, she gave essays to them, and she had effectively 72 hours of corrections. Do you think anybody listening to us today would imagine that a teacher has to work that hard?
I doubt if they would do it today. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
I taught Irish and French,
Yes.
and I did the corrections.
Lots of. Now, talk to me about. I suppose most of us who have gone through the school system have a reasonable understanding of your day in this classroom, but maybe very little understanding of what community life was like when you weren't when you weren't working as a teacher, but you were part of the community here. Was that a happy experience? Did you ever feel like leaving?
I didn't.
Did you
No,
not?
I had made up my mind. This was what I wanted, and I stayed with it.
Yeah. Hard the times, though, I'd imagine, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But what brought joy? What brings joy into your life as a member of the community?
I suppose celebrations.
Yes.
You know, we celebrate people's feast days and various things like that, jubilees,
Yes.
times like that.
And how do you do it? How do you celebrate them?
Well, we have a special meal, special dinner, special meal,
Yes.
a big cake for jubilees and times like that.
And the relatives come now.
The
to
relatives, there's no problem about it at all.
Yes. Since Vatican II brought about a huge change in community life in the convents.
That's right.
Did you welcome that? Or would you prefer it? Did you prefer the old?
Oh no, I didn't. I was happy like the way the things happened.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You liked
It meant
the
that we were able
changes?
to see the family and everything much more often.
Yes.
And you could hop on a bus or hop on a train,
Yes.
you know.
Yes. So, insofar as the community is concerned, then we'll say, since you came to Macroom, you're outside contact with the people of the town. How much of that have you had?
Well, I would have had a certain amount of it through school,
Yes.
and she's only mostly doing messages or meet people I meet, you know.
Down around the town.
yeah.
Yes. But you would have been very busy, of course, doing an awful lot of in-service education courses.
That's right.
Down through the years in both your language teaching
I did, yeah.
and in your career guidance as
That's
well.
yeah.
So you would have been off in the evenings doing all these courses and during the summer months.
During
I
the
presume.
summer months,
Yeah,
yeah.
very busy time. So will you always be here now? Or will there be any
I-
more changes?
I don't know. We don't know what the future is going to bring.
Yes. Yeah, you've seen an awful lot of changes down
That's
through the
right.
years, haven't you? Yeah, very good.
That's right.
Sister Mary, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that was Sister Mary Kearns, who started her life in Cove and is now in Macroom and open as ever to the changes that might yet come.
Sisters of Mercy, and true to the charism of Catherine Macaulay, and imbued with her spirituality, we may bring the love and compassion of Jesus Christ to all God's people, especially the poor, and cooperate with, support, and encourage all who make the gospel of mercy live in today's world. Amen.
Sister Francesca has been here in the convent for quite a while, but not without moving in and out of the place on many occasions indeed. Sister Francesca, you are much travelled within our own locality. When did you come to Macroom, or first of all, when did you become a sister?
I entered in February 1948, and I came here in August 1950.
So after novitiate?
Yes.
In Cove again?
In Cove.
Yes. And then you continued your teaching life here for a while?
I did until 1957.
57. And you left here then for a while?
Yes, I went to Carrick-on-Shore for a year to train at Bishop Ahern asked for sisters to go to St. Coleman's College because the Blue Sisters who had been there were finishing. So there were 4 of us asked to go, and I happened to be one of the 4.
Yes.
And in preparation for that, I spent a year in Carrick-on-Shore learning how to cook or cater or whatever. And then I spent 10 years in St. Coleman's.
So teaching was put aside for the moment?
It was, yes.
And you were in charge of catering for the boarding pupils, was it?
That's right.
In St. Coleman's
in
College?
St. Coleman's College, yeah.
That must have been a fairly strenuous job, was it?
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was a very challenging job, but I suppose I had youth on my side.
Yes, but I mean, you had
energy.
You had a college full of very robust young lads.
Oh,
of
that's
course.
right.
Yes. Did you enjoy that work?
I did. I did. There was a freedom about it, but the odd time I was saying if I was back in Macroom, things would be more, that you'd be more, not maybe more relaxed, but that you wouldn't be as tied down. And
maybe more in keeping with your vocation
That's
as well.
That's right, yes, possibly.
And where did you stay at that time? There isn't a Mercy House in Fermoy.
No, we had, originally there were 2 nuns before us, so there were 2 rooms and a kind of a sisters' area, and they made 2 more at the top of the boys' stairs for 2 of us. So we were there for a few years, maybe 4 years possibly, and then they built a wing where we had a stairs of our own and a corridor for ourselves.
You must have been questioning your vocation at that stage, were you?
I wasn't really, because when I went back to St. Coleman's from here, having spent the holidays here, I'd go down to the chapel and I'd say, "You're here anyway, Lord, whoever else is not."
Yes.
That he was here and there, so that kept me going. And we must have our own bit of fun in between.
Yes.
And the boys were mostly, they had nicknames. And if we were asked, if somebody came looking for a boy with his proper name, we'd hardly know who they were talking about.
Yes, I know. So you stayed on then in Fermoy for 10 years, imagine, altogether, and back to Macroom in 1968.
Yes.
So did you settle back into convent life easily then?
I did, I think. I think I did anyway.
Did you know the other sisters here at that stage?
Oh, I did. I knew everybody. Sure, I was coming back for holidays in between. And the occasional visit.
So this was your base house?
It was, yes, that's right.
Yes. And you came back for the holidays and you, as you say, the time in between then.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Settle into teaching life then, did you?
I did. After, I was in a class the first year I came back. And then I was doing part-time here and there the next 2 years. And I was back into full swing then
Yeah.
for the next.
And you were teaching
20
primary
years.
down
I was teaching.
down at the first and second classes at that stage. You
yeah,
taught me, didn't you?
I taught you in infants.
Didn't you make a fine job of me? What do you think?
I did. I hope I did, Brendan, that I had a hand in it anyway. Part of the foundation, as I keep telling the sisters in the secondary school, that the foundation had to be laid in the primary.
Well, indeed, they'd like to take all the credit, wouldn't they? Just because they get us when we're a bit older.
I don't know whether they want to take all the credit or not, but I'd have be standing up for the foundation all the time.
Tell me, did you ever feel that you were so busy with school life that you almost lost sight of prayer and of religious side of things?
I don't think I did, because I suppose for a lot of our lives we had set times for prayer. We had early morning prayer and we had set times to do spiritual reading and that kind of thing. That's school, and we had recreation time, which was good fun too.
So there was a definite routine,
There
was there?
There was, yes.
Yeah, but did you find the discipline of convent life? I mean, sometimes when we look at film and television, maybe a bit of convent life as it was in the past, it seems very austere and very disciplined at times. Did you experience it in that way?
I didn't really. I know what you're saying, Brendan, but like when we look back on it, we'd be saying just such and such a thing, but going through it, we took it for granted.
Yes.
At least I did anyway.
And you probably welcomed it too, did you?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know whether I even thought about whether it was welcome or otherwise, but
Yes. Yeah, very good. So you taught away in Macroom, but then you were
I went to Cove then for 4 years.
And what happened there?
I've been down actually as leader, which was an awful challenge, and
A leader of what?
the community
In Cove.
in Cove.
So you would have been called the Reverend Mother, except they weren't calling you Reverend Mothers anymore.
That's right.
So back again to Macroom then, and you've been here since 1990 continuously.
That's right, yes.
Yeah,
I retired from school in 1993.
yes. And what do you do now, sister, to, we'll say, fulfill your vocation at this stage?
Well, I still do. I'm involved with the Senior Citizens Committee, which I joined when I came back from Fermoy. That was founded. So I'm one of the founding members. I'm still in it.
Yes.
And
that's a
we're
very...
36 years in it now.
That's 36 years in the Senior Citizens.
Yeah, well, I know with the 4 of Cove out of it.
Yes. So you almost qualify as a senior citizen yourself at this stage.
Almost.
Yes.
There's more than almost in it.
Yeah. But that has been a hugely successful project, hasn't it?
Oh, it has. It has.
You must feel very... Your sisters aren't allowed to feel proud, but you must feel very satisfied about your part in that.
Well, I suppose there was a great... like originally the meetings were held in the Vic, where Arthur Mercy and Harry O'Leary gave us free room, and the meals and wheels were cooked by the people involved in their homes. And then eventually, like, we had these charity walks and fundraising events, which all the members were very involved in, and it was great to see that we built the hall and then we extended the hall, and it was extended a second time, I think, or new roof put on it and that. And then there's Salon Haven attached to it, and we have the houses across Salon Place, belongs to the committee. And we were involved with Anvil as well, in the sense, I think, we bought a right away or something from the mart for that.
Yes. And what do you want to say what takes place in Anvil?
Oh, in Anvil, there are council houses really there, but they're 2-bedroom houses, and then the houses in Salon Place have only 1 bedroom.
Yes. Yes. So that has been a tremendous, and that's continuing to grow. I believe there are plans, even, or hopes to build some more houses down there.
There are, that's right.
Yes. That's absolutely wonderful work. And outside of that, then, that must keep you busy, fairly busy full time, does it?
Well, it doesn't really, because I only go to the meetings now and to the socials, because I'm on the catering committee of the social.
Well, do you know something? You have picked the right things to go to. Because I've been down there to the socials on a couple of occasions, and I'll tell you, When very soon, that's what I'll be going to as well as the socials a bit more often. It's very, they're very enjoyable. Great sing-songs and great dancing and merriment down there. So, Sister Francesca, you've had a very long and distinguished career, made an enormous contribution to life, not just here in Macroom, but in Carrick and in Fermoy and in Cove, and of course, no doubt your main work, I suppose, was your teaching life, but surely the feather in your cap must be the Senior Citizens Project. So the people of Macroom have every reason to be grateful to you for the long service you have given here. This is Sister Francesca, a sister since 1948 and serving all over the province here, the Mersey province. And now the sisters have invited us into their sitting room, where they're all sitting around nice and comfortably at the moment here before the fire. But right next to me on the right-hand side is the most senior sister here in the convent. And of course, to beat all of that, she is of course a Macroom person. This is Sister Eukarya Richardson, and I think, Sister, you are in the convent now for quite a number of years.
Sure I am. I don't know how long I am.
I'll hold this now for you, Sister.
How long am I here?
How long? You're here a long time now, aren't you?
I'm here about it, that's all I can say about it. I'm here about
And
it.
you're going to sing something for us today because you have a nice Macroom song for us, haven't you?
Yes, it is Mum Messi, the Pride of Macroom.
Yes.
Have you the book there? You
I
have.
have the book here as well, and if you want me, I'll shut up.
Oh,
And you do the
if
singing.
I want to, you do the singing.
Right, well, off we go. We'll see what we can do with it.
You say it now, differently.
Yeah, you sing away now, Sister.
I long to remember
The
bright days of joy, which freely with joy I beguile. The friends of me went at my old cabin door, and comrades I loved when a child. How I longed for to roam by the mountains in groves, or poured by the light of the moon. That spot of my birth, there's the equal on earth, Mount Massey, the flower of Macroom. So,
friends, come with me,
and
there
you will see the apples and cherries in bloom. And to you I invite, where I first saw the light, Mount Massey, the flower of Macroom.
Will we get a second verse out of you at all today? We'll have to come back again tomorrow for the second verse, I think, Sister. I think she deserves a little bowl of bus for that now.
And I always ignored the person who was singing. You just near me.
A bowl of bus for me as well. She's insisting that we have a bowl of bus for me as well. Very good. Sister Eukarya, you grew up in Macroom, did you? And how much of that do you remember now of your school days in Macroom? Tell me about going up and down to school. Where did you live in Macroom?
There's the corner house down near the town hall.
Near the town hall?
Where's there? It is a chemist shop now.
So you were right in the middle of the town?
You're right.
And there was a lot of activity, I suppose, in the town in those days.
Horses and cars, you know, like.
People coming in from the farming community.
Exactly.
And was there one, had they a fair day?
Oh, sure, they were out delight because they were afraid the cows did no mark that time.
Yes.
So the cows was built in the streets and all over the place and flags and everything. And So we got a day off from school on account of that for a long, long time.
And did you get a day off every time there was a fair day?
Should have only once a month.
Once a month there was
Yeah.
a fair.
Yeah.
And you were all looking forward to that day.
Oh, mad farmer, mad looking forward to it.
And did you see the farmers out in the square then buying and selling the animals?
Of course.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And sister, what about the state of the street? I'm quite sure there was. But I suppose everybody just brushed outside their own doors, did they?
Oh, should I had to?
Yes.
I was a brush for you, maybe sure.
Yeah. So tell me where you went to school then?
Here.
Here to the convent?
Of course, yeah.
Primary school and secondary?
No, I went to Untitled Jingle.
Collage de Ida?
Yeah, yes, because that's the time right that they started all Irish. We did everything in Irish, no? And then every subject.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got there.
And you went on then to teaching after that?
I went to Limerick.
Until-
Training college.
That was Mary Immaculate Training College, was it?
Exactly, yes.
In Limerick?
Yes.
And what did you teach when you came to the convent?
I was in the primary school.
And you were teaching. What classes did you have?
Different ones, of course, with different years when you were like.
Up along the line?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
different, yes.
What were the children like that time? Were they cross?
Not really, no. No, they weren't really, I know.
And had you big classes?
We had.
How many would you have in a class now? Would you have 20?
Oh, you'd have over 20, all right. You
Would you?
would, I would.
You, yes, and you maybe even 30 or 40, would you?
Well, never that many tests, I imagine.
Would you not?
We were
Yeah.
in the 20s anyway, though.
Yes, yeah. And of course you taught them all kinds of subjects then in the primary school, the same as today.
That's right.
Yeah. So, have you always been in this convent? Since you entered?
More or less, right? I went down to the college where the boys are at school, you know.
St. Coleman's,
Yes,
is it?
yes. And nuns used to be getting meals for the boys there, you know, and getting meals for the priests. So
Oh, so you helped out with that?
I don't know much with me. I did more with the eating. The helping. But I just answer the phone and things like that.
Yeah. You used to answer the phone, is it?
Yeah.
I know, so you were busy. How long did you spend in Fermoy?
Oh, I was on 2 years, or 2 or 3 years there.
2 or 3 years in Fermoy.
And then came back to Macroom.
Were you happy to come back to Macroom again?
Did I?
Tell me, what family had you had in Macroom? Who was here belonging to you?
You know, my aunt, she was teaching up in the church, you know, like the music.
That was Nan Richardson.
Exactly, you know her.
I didn't know her myself, but my mother knew her very well.
Because her mother used to be singing in the choir.
She,
Herself and Kathleen Healy, they were very good and loyal to her. Like.
yeah, they used to sing in the choir, and she played the organ, didn't
Exactly,
she?
yes.
Did she teach piano in the town as well?
Because she did, she taught an awful lot of children. Poor Ned Murphy, he was learning, his father Ned, you know.
Yes?
And they said that he thought him managed enough a good effort. So when he wanted to go from David Murphy to live across from us, of course.
Yes.
When he wanted to get his music lesson, go up to Guntrain and along down and across into my aunt, she said,
Oh, yes.
oh yes, for his music lesson.
I see.
He didn't think he was managed enough, hard enough for him to be going there.
I remember my mother. Of course, because he was a boy, it wasn't a done thing for boys to learn piano, is it?
No.
I see. So he didn't want to be seen going for his piano lesson.
That's right.
I see. I remember my mother telling me that your aunt Nan Richardson had 2 pianos in the house. Why was that?
The piano's upstairs now.
In the convent here.
Oh, yes.
Is it indeed?
It is.
No.
I'll explain it to you. My uncle, he was in England and had that piano.
Yes.
And after a certain amount of years, then I must have got the 3rd division or that way. So he gave it to my aunt.
Yes.
And then Convent bought it for my aunt at later years.
I see.
didn't put up.
Was that a German piano? I think it was.
It was a good piano anyway, it is, yes.
Yes, because I remember my mother used to say that it was only very privileged singing pupils who were taken upstairs to the good piano.
Oh, yes. Oh, it was always a good piano, you know. Like.
Yes.
And only good ones would be taken up.
Taken up to the good piano.
Yes.
Is it still like that here?
No.
No. Yeah. This is where the pupils do their exams today, is it?
That's it, yes.
Yes.
They come in from the country to a bit to do the exams for the good piano.
And they still do their exams on that good piano.
They do.
Isn't that wonderful continuity?
Yes.
Tell me now about when you entered the convent. Where did you enter?
We're in Cove, as I went down to the initiation on Cove.
In Cove.
Where the novices went.
Yes. And what did you like about convent life?
I just liked it.
What did you like particularly, do you think? Did you like the community being with the other nuns?
Oh, I did, of course, yes. That was
Yes.
very nice, I like.
Yes.
And it's a nice prayers and all and things like that, you know. Like.
Yes.
That was very nice.
Yes, and we've seen the convent chapel. I suppose you've prayed for a lot of Macroom people in there over the years, have you?
I know I'm kind of person I say. Well, I said prayers, all right. I
sure.
must be saying prayers.
And I'm sure they were all heard, were they?
Oh, the best.
Yes.
They couldn't refuse a saint.
No.
That's all.
So we'll know where to come now if we want to have our prayers answered.
You want to be good yourself too before they'd be answered. Men would, but women wouldn't.
Yeah. Now, are you going to tell us, or is it a big secret what age you are?
29.
29, is it?
Yes.
Did you turn that the wrong way around, I wonder?
92. Nearly. You made a great guess.
Did I make a good guess?
95 last August.
95
Don't
last
say
August.
that time.
We won't tell a living soul, not a living Christian.
No.
Not a living Christian. Sister Eukarya, it's lovely talking to you, and may you be around for many, many years to come.
Oh, that's what everybody says. It.
Do they? And you will be too, because you're as healthy as a hare. Aren't you?
Oh, we can pass from where me to here.
Thank you very much, Sister Eukarya. Yeah. Down by the Sally Gardens, my love and I did meet. She passed the Sally Gardens with little snow white feet. She bade me take life easy as the leaves grow on the tree. But I was young and foolish, with her did not agree. In a field down by the river, my love and I did stand, and on my leaning shoulder she laid her snow white hand. She bade me take life easy as the grass grows on the weir. But I was young and foolish, and now am full of tears.
Lovely.
And here in the sitting room of the sisters, we can see the much-loved paintings of one of their much-loved deceased sisters. These are the paintings of Sister Columba, who spent so much time enjoying the easel and the brush. She loved to paint outdoors, loved to paint the scenes, and of course taught painting as well as music to her very many pupils. Sister Columba, of course, was multi-talented and multi-skilled. Not only did she paint with watercolours and with oils, but she was also an iconographer. She loved to paint the old icons, copies of the Russian icons, I think particularly, and spent many, many long days, I'm sure, studying them, studying the very complex meaning in Russian iconography. Taking pride of place here in the sitting room up over the fireplace is one of Sister Columba's well-known paintings. This is the painting of the much painted bridge and castle in Macroom, adding colour and life and movement to this lovely welcoming sitting room of the sisters. I'm speaking now to Sister Peter, a sister that I remember with great affection as a small little boy when I came to school to the nuns here in Macroom. She was teaching up in, I think probably senior infants at that stage, but we'll check that out in a second. And she was a young sister arriving in Macroom, I think probably not too long before that time. Sister Peter, you entered the convent in 1941.
Yes.
Where was that?
That was in the novitiate in Mount St. Mary's Cove.
Yes. How do you account for your vocation? Where did it come from?
Well, I don't know. I suppose I always had a notion that I would be a nun, and I wanted it to be, kind of an easy convent. But I'd be able to do whatever was required. And I was the eldest of 5 girls. And my mother also was delighted that I was coming to the convent.
They were very happy about it at home,
They were very happy about it, yes.
Where were you born? Where were you living?
In County Limerick.
County Limerick.
A place called Doon.
Doon,
yeah.
Yes. And so they were very happy about it at home.
They were.
And your friends?
Oh, I remember the last Sunday I thought it was awful saying goodbye to all my friends. They were all saying goodbye to me after Mass. On the last Sunday I was going to be at home. That's the only time I felt lonely.
Yes,
yeah.
And you came away. And you knew that when you were coming into the convent that time, into the novitiate, that you wouldn't see them again for a long time.
Well, we did see them, they could visit you, except in spiritual year. We had 1 year. First of all, we had 6 months as a novice, and then we had spiritual year, and then we had our final year, and then after that we had profession. Mm-hmm. But they could come and see you, except in spiritual year. I don't think we were allowed visitors then.
Yes.
But you wouldn't be cut off from home at all.
Would you not?
No.
And
we didn't go home during these years.
You didn't? So how many years was it before you got back home again? Actually into your house? Were you?
I was down here in Macroom anyway. We were let go home maybe once a year or so, shortly after I came down here, I'd say.
Yes, because I have some memories of sisters of the Presentation Order who were allowed to go home but not enter the house itself.
Yes, well that never applied to me. I always got in.
You always got in, did you?
Yeah.
There
was a rule where we was travelling twos, that you'd have to take a person with you that time. But that didn't apply to me at all because I had a sister in St. Mary's of the Isle, so we were always able to go home together.
Oh, I see.
So I didn't keep half of these rules.
So you had your own arrangements.
I had my own arrangements, yeah.
That's very good. Did you find it was as you imagined it would be when you entered? Or was it different in any way? I wasn't
imagining at all what it would be like. I suppose you just fell in with what was going,
Yes.
And I suppose you just did what everybody was doing.
What was the discipline like for you?
You just did what was to be done. And you know, you got up when the bell went and you went to bed, and it wasn't burdensome at all on me, really.
Yes.
I just fell in with it, I think.
Yes. So you came to Macroom then soon after that, did you?
At the end of the 2.5 years after profession, Sister Strachan was with me. Sister Strachan MacDonald. We came the same day, and we came down here the same day.
Yes.
And she's gone to heaven now, Sister Strachan.
Yes. So the two of you then started teaching, and you were in the primary sector.
Yes.
Yeah. What classes did you have?
Well, I had the juniors for a long time. And then you went to training, you see, you went to Kerrsford. Then when you come back, I was still in senior infants, as you say. But later on, then I passed and I taught every class in the primary school, except the junior infants, which was was always there.
Yes. And Sister Thaddeus, of course, between yourself and Sister Thaddeus now, who was also in heaven, you would nearly spend a whole century. She was one of the oldest nuns in the convent when she died, wasn't she?
I suppose she would have been, yeah, she would.
Yeah, and that would have spanned right back nearly to the early 1910s, I suppose, when Sister Thaddeus would have come here.
Oh, I suppose it would
in the 20s. Yeah. It must have been interesting talking to somebody like Sister Thaddeus and the changes that she would have seen.
Yes, yeah.
In her time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know Sister Thaddeus very well yourself, don't you, and her band and all the rest of it.
I do indeed, and you remind me about that band now.
The band was a great thing, wasn't it? We have all the small boys and all the small girls, and they had triangles and the drums, and you had to be a great friend of Sister Thaddeus, and you had to be very musical if you got on the drum. It was a very, very, very important thing to be able to do.
That's what held everything else together.
Yeah.
The drumming, and I remember all the instruments up there being
That's
put
right,
away.
the little triangles and
tambourines.
Oh yes, yeah.
And they were all put away very carefully
Wasn't
at
it
the end
marvellous
of
with a
every
big press
session.
for all the instruments? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever had any public outings with the band.
Oh no, we didn't have
That kind of thing didn't happen.
No.
In fact, the sisters didn't go out around the town an awful lot at all, did they, at that stage?
No, you didn't. No, not really.
Yeah.
You couldn't go out alone then anyway, so you couldn't.
You couldn't, and you
couldn't,
were very much within the grounds.
Yeah.
And again, I suppose some of the older people in the town would remember that what you mentioned just now, the sisters walked around in pairs always.
Yes, but before our time, I do remember this all right a little bit at home. They used to wear a veil when they were going out, and they used to go out in pairs, and they used to go to every house, especially in visitation to the poorer people.
Yes.
You know, and even to little women that were expecting little children. They were very, very good. They were better, I think, than we were. We used to go to visitation just to talk to people and maybe, give a hand out or whatever. But they were very good, the older nuns like that. We never used this veil. It's a black veil they just put on over their faces. And you could see out, but the people wouldn't know. They wouldn't know what nuns they were, they wouldn't recognise them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you remember
I barely
that?
remember that when I was at home as a girl, that the nuns just go out, but I know they used to do it here as well.
Yes. Out to visit
when they
people.
Out to visit people.
And did they actually help the people with financially and with goods, with material goods?
Well, I would imagine that they did, that they would have done anything that they would have, been able to do, that they would have done it.
Yes.
I know they used to give assistance and they would give help, they would.
Yeah. Speaking about money now and possessions, we'll say before the Vatican Council particularly, and when you entered first, would you personally have had any dealings with money or handling of money as a sister in the convent?
No, not really. You could ask for what you needed, and you wouldn't be in need of anything. You would get anything you needed, but you wouldn't own the money. You wouldn't have it yourself. And then sometimes I remember we got as far as getting half-crown. We thought it was a fortune.
Yes. And you got that on a regular basis, did you?
Oh, not so often, but it was very welcome when it came. And you get to find out for half-crown then.
And what would you do with it? What would you do with the half-crown?
Oh, you spent it. I forget what you'd buy, but I know you'd spend it. You wouldn't have much left.
Yes, it'd go quickly enough.
It would, yeah.
I can imagine
That's funny.
that. Yeah. I can see your very happy memories of that half-crown. So the Vatican Council came along, and off went the veils, and off went the big trains.
Kind of free to do anything, yes.
Yeah. Were you happy with that, or did you regret the passing of the...
Well, I thought when we took off our veils and put out our hair first, it was an awful lot, very shy. But now I don't mind. You wouldn't go back to it,
Yeah. You wouldn't want to go back to it at all?
Not really, no. You wouldn't. It should be big cams, and they were a bit cumbersome. We used to have our watch up there, And
Yes, it was all very...
And somebody said to me in school, "When they have you ears?"
Did you ever show them to them?
No.
You
Our
didn't?
ears just to be covered.
No. Are you happy, I suppose, with the sort of the changing world, if you like? For you sisters now, to a large extent, we're here celebrating your 140th anniversary in Macroom. It's unlikely that we'll be celebrating 150th in this in this building.
Very unlikely. I couldn't see it happening.
Why is that?
Because you see, our numbers have gone down. There are only 10 of us here now, where there would have been 29 or 30 before. And
let's talk now to Sister Peter about the work that the sisters do, not teaching work here in Macroom, but much further afield. The sisters have travelled widely throughout the world in their mission. Sister Peter, you yourself went to Africa.
yes,
Tell me when that was.
it was on the 6th of September 1988 I went to Africa.
Now, had you retired from teaching at that
Yes,
stage?
I had retired from teaching.
And where did you go in Africa?
I went to Chipperary. It's West Pokot, and it's near the Turkana Desert.
So you're talking about Kenya.
Yes, Kenya.
And had the sisters already set up a mission in Kenya when you went there?
Yes, there were 3 sisters there already, and I joined them as the 4th one.
As the 4th one?
Yeah, and one of them got sick, and then she went home, and I stayed. There were 3 of us there then again, for 2 years.
So were you actually, you went up in Turkana, you visited Turkana?
Oh, I did, yeah.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah. That was the area that Father James Good was in, wasn't
I
it?
visited Father James Good there, yeah.
Yes. And was Father Pat Kelleher from Mahina Parish?
I think he was.
He was up in Kitui, I think, wasn't he,
Kitui,
in Kenya?
yeah, that's right.
So tell me now about what you did while you were in Kenya.
When I was in Kenya, I was asked to take religion and English in the first Form 1 and Form 2.
Yes.
So I did that for 2 years.
My goodness.
We had a boarding school.
Yes.
And the children were very, very poor. They were older than our leaving sets would be, than our secondary school children would be. But they were very industrious, and they loved to work.
Yes. Had you big classes there?
Oh, very big, yeah.
How big?
Oh, you'd have 30 or more.
Would you inside in the class? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it must have been very difficult for you. I mean, after all, you had spent your whole life teaching in Macroom. You had taken retirement, and then you faced out. Did you feel very brave facing out into an African culture?
I felt I was doing the right thing because I had never thought of it myself. It wasn't in my mind at all until Mother General asked me one day, did I ever think of going to Africa? And I had never thought of it.
Yes.
And she said, consider it. And I knew I couldn't say no. And to this day, I'm very glad that I didn't.
You enjoyed the experience.
Oh, it was marvellous.
You have an interesting letter, an interesting piece written in this book describing your time in Africa. Can we just look at this for a moment, Sister? I was reading this a bit earlier, and you said, what can I say about the continent? Can you read that for us?
Yeah. It is anything but dark. It is certainly bright and beautiful. So long ago when we learned that the equator was an imaginary line drawn around the centre of the earth. But the sensation of standing at the equator with some giraffes in the distance was breathtaking. The Great Rift Valley was just a term in the geography books, but to stand and stare at that enormous abyss was just beyond imagining. And then we travelled during holidays from Nairobi to Mombasa in an enormous big train. We slept there, we ate there for a night, and I suppose it took us nearly 2 days to go. We enjoyed the sleep and the meals overnight, to sit by the beach or travel in a glass-bottomed boat and see the multicoloured fish, the coral reef, etc. Wildlife in Africa is absolutely stunning. The African people have a great sense of God, which is found usually in worship. Their singing is loud and communal. The prayers of the faithful are spontaneous and personal. People pray with confidence and faith. They know that God is listening. While in Africa, I taught a little, but I learned a lot. And for the experience, I am deeply grateful. And I say a big, big thank you to the people of Kenya.
Well, Sister Peter, thank you very much for telling us about the mission, about your own time in Africa.
Welcome.
And I think it will be news to a lot of people, really, that the sisters here in Macroom have ranged so far and wide across the world in their mission and in their calling to the Mercy Order.
My God, I am yours for time and eternity. Lord, I am yours forever. It is you who must teach me to trust in your providence.
Well, that concludes our visit here to the Convent of Mercy in Macroom. The good sisters have just treated us to a magnificent tea in the spirit of their foundress, Catherine Macaulay, who asked them when she was dying to look after the visitors, give them a cup of tea and make them welcome. We were made very welcome indeed. Our thanks to the Sisters of Mercy here in this convent, now 140 years old. Later on, we expect and hope to visit the new convent, Mercy House, in Daniel Corkery Place, and we hope to bring you that programme very shortly. Gur míle maith agaibh agus slán os na mná rialtan sa histig, féin go fóil agus go nairi live.